Basically, we're going to do two main things. So the first one is we're going to learn how to solve blunders and one-movers. For example, when you think you're making a move that helps you, but in actuality you're missing something else that happens. That's the first thing that we're going to do. But then the second thing that we're going to learn, which is what most beginners are missing all the way up to 1400, is a positional concept, an idea. And it will shift it basically in a way that is very difficult for intermediate players to counter, because you're not going to then make the minor mistakes. Basically, you're going to then start grinding down the opponent very, very easy using a positional idea that has been around for ages. So let's start with avoiding blunders first of all. Basically, what happens for most beginners, and you're going to see the example twice, but basically what is happening is that what you're going to see with blunders is that usually what happens is that you are making a move and then you realize that this is a blunder. So if you hop now into chess.com, for example, and see all the previous games that you've had, this is usually what happens. You make a move, for example, a regular developing move, like bishop to here, and then you realize that there is some tactical shot or something else that you've been missing that happened. Then you realize it's a blunder, and you want to sort of like shift the move sequence back so that you could undo the blunder, but you can't. And then you just realize that you've made like a miss of a simple take. So for example, in here, it could be like queen takes, the rook takes, the bishop takes, pawn takes, and this is like sort of a way for you to ruin the position of your opponent, and then you can just simply take, and you just up a piece and your opponent is losing. Either that or something else happens. So either it's like a simple miss of a move, so either it's like a simple miss of a take, or something else happens. It's a miss of a threat in your calculations, basically. So for example, in here, black saw, of course, that the pawn is on g3. The idea that the black had is I'm going to move the pawn to f4, to f3, then f4, he takes f3, and then I could put the rook. But you forgot then that your opponent could also move their own rook back. And this is like a miss in your thinking process that you forgot. Both of them happen and they're very common. So I'll just show you the example. So pawn to f4, of course it's a blunder, he takes. Then this, but of course you can just move the rook back. And now we're just up a knight and I can't do anything. So we're going to right now solve them in a very, very easy way. So we're going to solve this by creating what is called a thinking process. Basically sort of like almost like a checklist of questions that you're going to do in your mind before every move that you make. How can I progress to my opponent's side of the board and attack or cook something? And the second one is there a blunder on the board? Basically, could the opponent then take something from me, like via tactic, to make sure that you're not missing something? How can I progress to my opponent's side of the board and take or attack something? And two, is there a blunder that I missed on the board via tactic or whatever? And you and I are going to see this in action. Let's take this a few moves back and you and I see this in action, basically, how this thinking process will apply to you. All right? So now, let's say black, for example, moved bishop to b4. How are we going to then think the thinking checklist is going to be true, and we're going to apply this all the way from the beginning of the game, basically all the way into the end game? Why is the computer saying that black is better? It's because of two reasons. First of all, it has like an extra pawn, and you're going to see the more you level up that the minor pieces like pawns and so on, they're very, very important. And you should never ignore a possibility of your opponent to take one of them. But the second reason is that this pawn is very, very advanced. It controls basically two squares that now white cannot place his pieces in. He cannot move his knight, for example, into here, which is the obvious place you want to take the knight to. So just to understand why is black a little bit better here. But even then, you're going to see that as a beginner, it's very easy for you to at least be fine in these positions and know what to do, even if you're worse. So again, how can we, as white, progress into the opponent's side of the board? So there's obviously a few ways that you probably see right now. You probably think about doing something with either this bishop and this knight. You can't do anything with this knight because it's pinned. And when we say this, we want to refer mostly into pieces. Pawns can be sometimes into effect here, but pieces are mostly what we want to talk about. We want to move the pieces and make them the most active. Activity is the basic idea behind this question. So white thought about this, and the move that he came up with is bishop to f5, which, if you see, the computer dislikes this move. He dislikes this move because of one reason. The bishop in here, okay, says that now black is way better, and that is because of one reason. The bishop in here has already like a diagonal, basically. It already has like a few squares on white side and on black side that it puts pressure against. The knight, however, doesn't have like a singular one. That's a problem, which is why when white does the move bishop to b5, you can see that the computer really wants to move the knight here. It's because this knight is extremely inactive. It wants the knight probably in the future to move somewhere and basically make it active and aim at the opponent's squares. Our opponent, black, did the mistake, the first mistake, which is pawn to e5. If you have any option to take material without consequences, like in this example, you should always do this. So pawn takes is obviously the correct move. Now black is just a tiny bit better. You will also have to move the knight. But then, if a blunder, for example, bishop to, if you will think about a blunder like bishop to g4, in your mind, you will immediately start canceling your moves like this, because you will just realize, oh wait, I want to move my bishop here, but my knight is under attack, so it's a blunder. I have to move the knight first. And again, using the first question in the checklist, you will think, where's the best place to move the knight? It's better to move them forward, to place more pressure against the opponent's squares. Then, for example, when a problem happens for you, and you're thinking, I should move the bishop forward, which is the right concept, the right idea, but basically at the wrong time, because your knight is under attack, you're going to then cancel the idea of moving the bishop forward, or at least for now, and you're going to then do something with the knight. The piece which is under attack, hopefully also you'll have a possibility of moving it forward, like here. And that's a simple way for you to avoid blunders, but also to get better from them. If you will open now the archive of games that you've had on chess.com, you will see that it's not like a huge strategic idea that you've missed which led to a blunder. It's more like just a one mover or a misclick that usually happens. That's how it usually goes for beginners. The same thing is here, by the way, in the second game. Basically, in here, Black also missed that he didn't miss the take, it was part of the idea, but he missed that if he goes here and the pawn takes, and then here, basically like sort of creating a wall that White's king could not escape. The idea is, if the pawn is here, then White could just move the rook back. And now you just see that you've missed like a simple move, and it's just a piece giveaway. That's usually how it goes.